Hey friends, welcome or welcome back. It's Laura with Laura B Floss Tube. I just thought I would share my little quick project with you today. I have been collecting selvages for a while, and I've collected them from a few of the different fat quarter bundles that I have that I was like, hey, I should share this with my people because they may want to do something similar, or maybe this will spark an idea for you if you've been saving selvages with no idea what to do, kind of like I've been for like 2 years. So hey, let's talk about this project and I'll tell you what I've done so far and my plans eventually for these blocks. So what I'm using, these are the supplies that you're gonna need. Oh, hang on. Okay, so here are our supplies. Obviously we need a rotary cutter. And I'm using 9.5 inch squares. My blocks when I finish them are 9.5 inches. So I have my 9.5 inch ruler, which is very handy by the way. I also have interfacing. This is a featherweight interfacing. It's Pellon brand. I cut these squares to 10 inches. And honestly, the reason I cut them at 10 inches was because the interfacing that I got was 20 inches wide. And I was like, hey, that's easy. I'll cut 10 inch segments, cut them in half. I have 10 inch squares. Now, you'll remember my ruler is 9.5, right? That's because after I get all my selvages sewn on there, I trim them down to 9.5. So I have a really nice finished 9.5 inch square to finish down to a 9 inch block. And then, of course, you'll need some selvages. So let's go over to the sewing machine and let me show you what I'm doing. All right, guys, we're at the sewing machine, and what I've done is I just have my stack of interfacing kind of off to the side. I have my box of selvages right here, and I also have some 2.5 inch strips. I decided that I want the center of, the diagonal center of all my blocks to be something consistent. So I chose 2 different fabrics that I had 2.5 inch strips of, and I have cut those to the length that they need to be to go across this corner to corner. So what I'm going to do is I start with this strip in the center, and then I build out with my selvages on either side. This is super quick and easy, you guys, because they're basically not really seam allowances, and you're just overlapping fabric and sewing it down. The only thing you need to be careful about is just to make sure that wherever you're sewing the seam, you need to make sure that it catches the fabric edge underneath. But if it's only, you know, 1/8 of an inch, or if it's a little more than 1/4 of an inch, it doesn't matter. It's going to be fine. So let's put one of these blocks together so you can see what I'm doing. As we go along, I'm just going to be grabbing random selvages out of my tub and putting them onto my block. Let me get a few things separated out real quick. All right. So, and it doesn't, I mean, all of these fabrics came from 2 different collections from Riley Blake. One of them was Calico, and Prairie was the other one. So I'm just going to lay this over. Now, like I said, the only thing you want to be careful about is make sure that this overlaps that fabric underneath. And you just need to make sure that you, wherever you sew your seam, it's going to catch the edge of that fabric. You're going to be so amazed at how quick this is. Sewing along there. To be quite honest, it doesn't even matter if it's perfectly straight. I'm just using a white thread in the top, and I'm using up different colored bobbins for the bottom actually. So this is a great way to use up some scraps, to use those selvages, to use those partial bobbins, all of that good stuff that we just kind of throw to the wayside and kind of forget about after a while. Now, you want to make sure that, or I want to make sure that some of the fabric shows too, not just the selvage. So I'm just kind of watching to make sure that I can get a little bit of that fabric showing. And it's just going to depend on how wide you cut your selvage. Most of the time I try to cut my selvages 1.5 or 2 inches wide. Oh, I'm out of bobbin. That's what happens when you're using up partial bobbins. I know I'm using a dark color, but most of the fabrics that I'm using are also dark, so it's not going to matter. Now this is way longer than it needs to be, so I'm going to cut this off, put it in a little pile to the side, and I'll save it for another block, or maybe another place in this block. Now I'm using both selvages. I'm using the printed edge and the non-printed edge. So if you don't want to do that, obviously you don't have to. But see what I'm saying? There's like no seam allowance to worry about. The only thing you gotta make sure is that you cover up that edge of the fabric that's underneath. And we're building out from the center. So we have that edge here. We are good to go. Now sometimes I will tell you that I kind of like play with the selvage a little bit and get a certain type of writing or something on there. Other times I just throw it on there and go for it. Because eventually we're going to use up all of these scraps, and eventually the writing is going to be on there. The hardest part sometimes is to make a decision on which one to use. All right, now we're going to flip this around and go down the other side. Like I said, as long as you are covering up the edge of the fabric underneath and catching that edge, then you're going to be fine. You can use the same fabrics, you can use different fabrics. It's really up to you. This block has a lot of green and blue in it, but that's okay. The finished product will be great because we'll have all the different selvages in it. Go ahead and use a little bit more of this one. This is a great project for those days when you just kind of need something. You just want to sit down and sew, right? You just want to sew. You don't want to have to think a lot. You don't want to have to worry about, oh, is this right? Is this going to look right? Is this going to, go with my plan? It's just kind of mindless sewing. And some days you just need that. We've been so busy with the new year and different things that we're doing. I really needed some mindless sewing today. So this definitely came in handy. This is one of those times that I'm kind of like, ooh, could I get that so the calico's right in the corner? That could be cute. So apparently I have some calico in here too. All right, so our block is together. This is it. So now we're going to take it over to the cutting mat and trim it down and throw it on the design wall so you can see what we've got. All right, to trim up this block, we're going to turn it right side down. So we're looking at the back, we're looking at the interfacing. We're just going to slap our 9.5-inch square on there. And get it, somewhat centered. Now remember I told you I cut my interfacing at 10 inches. I'm cutting these down to 9.5. So I'm just going to take my rotary cutter. All right, these are all the scraps that I have left over. I'm not going to worry about those. If you're saving them for something else, for stuffing a pet bed or something, then that's great. So here's our block. Let's throw it up on the design wall and see what we got. Okay, this is the block we just made. So let me give you a close-up of that before I put it up there. So this is our block, right? These are going to be great. I can either put these together in a different kind of pattern. Right now you'll notice I kind of have them going opposites. So I have kind of a diamond pattern going on. That's really cute. You could switch it up and turn them going all the same way. So you just have stripes going across your quilt one way or the other. You could really do, different, just play with it. Play with the layout, figure out what you want to do with them. Now, like I said, I am doing these on the diagonal. If you wanted to sew these in straight rows all the way down that interfacing, you could do that too. There's really no rules to this. It's a very quick and easy, I would say it's my take on string piecing, on string blocks. I know that string blocks are nothing new, and I've done different projects with string blocks with leftover scraps and strips. I love making these string blocks with the selvages because it's so quick. So I have gotten 9 blocks done today without any problem whatsoever. I still have lots of selvages left. I'm going to continue working on this project, and at some point I'll have to show it off in either a floss tube, or I'll do another special little video to show you what I do with the completed blocks. I have a few different ideas. I'm either going to put them into a quilt top, which would be great. I could put them into a table runner. I could use 2 or 4 of them, probably 2, with a border around to make some placemats for my table. I might make a border for over here underneath my featherweight. You could use 6 of them, or you could even put 8 of them and 2 rows of 4 to make a nice machine mat, because that extra layer of interfacing is going to give you even more cushion and sound absorption underneath your machine. So there's lots of things that you can do with these. Now, I have friends that they are like superbly talented at making bags. You could totally make some cute tote bags out of these, little clutches, little wallets, whatever you want. You have 9.5-inch square blocks here, and really the limit is on you. Your creativity is going to limit what you're going to do with them. So give yourself some time. Collect your selvages and think about what you could do with this super easy selvage string block. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial on the selvage string blocks. And I hope that if you haven't, you've subscribed to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, like the video, leave me a comment below. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, please look me up, Laura B. FlossTube, and I would love to hear from you. So until next time, everyone, happy stitching.